I was 19, studying at a small Catholic college in a quiet town called St. Mary's. The nuns who ran the place held an annual retreat, a 3-day event that all Catholic students had to attend. I was excited, not just for the prayers and hymns, but for the chance to spend time with my friends. About 100 girls stayed on campus, filling the old stone dorms with laughter and chatter. A priest named Father Michael came from out of state to lead us in worship. The days were packed with singing, masses, and moments of deep reflection that left my heart full. On the second night, things took a turn. It was around 9 in the evening, and we were gathered in the chapel, a dimly lit room with tall stained glass windows that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Father Michael stood at the altar, his voice rising as he called on saints to guide us. The air felt heavy, charged with devotion. Some girls were crying softly, caught up in the moment. I felt it too, a warmth in my chest, like something holy was near. But then, I noticed her. Her name was Clara, a girl from a lively clique known for their confidence. She had pale skin, dark curly hair, and always wore bright red nail polish that caught the light. That night, she sat a few rows ahead of me, and something about her seemed off. Her head was tilted at an odd angle, her shoulders rigid. I thought maybe she was just tired, but then her hands twitched, fingers curling like claws. A chill crawled up my spine, though I didn't know why. Father Michael's prayers grew louder, his words echoing off the stone walls. Suddenly, Clara's head snapped back, and her face twisted into something unrecognizable. Her mouth stretched into a grimace, and her eyes. God! Her eyes were wide and unnaturally white, like they'd swallowed all the color. Her hair seemed to lift, floating around her face as if caught in a wind no one else felt. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The girls around her gasped, some scooting away as she lurched from her seat. She wasn't just moving, she was lunging, her body jerking toward the altar like something was pulling her. Her nails, those red nails, looked longer, sharper, like they could tear through anything. She raked them across a wooden pew, leaving deep scratches that splintered the surface. My heart pounded as I realized she was aiming for Father Michael. The nuns rushed forward, their habits fluttering, but Clara was too strong, shoving them back with a force that didn't seem human. Her voice wasn't hers anymore. It came out low and guttural, switching between a man's growl and a woman's shriek. "I'll end you," she screamed at the priest, her words dripping with venom. Then, in a quieter, more chilling tone, she said, "I'm Elena. I served in her house. Before I burned." The name hung in the air, and I felt a sick twist in my gut. Who was Elena? Why was she here, inside Clara? The chapel was chaos. Girls were crying, some praying, others frozen like me, unable to look away. The nuns and a few older students tackled Clara, pinning her to the floor. She thrashed, her body bending in ways it shouldn't, her nails clawing at the air. Father Michael didn't flinch. He called for a leather strap, his voice steady but urgent. I couldn't watch anymore. My legs finally moved, and I ran with a group of girls to the dorms, our footsteps echoing in the dark halls. We locked ourselves in my room, huddling on the floor. The air felt thick, like something was pressing against the walls. We whispered about what we'd seen, too scared to sleep. I kept picturing Clara's face, those eyes, that voice. It wasn't her. Something else was inside her, something old and angry. We stayed up until dawn, jumping at every creak of the old building, half expecting those nails to scrape at the door. The next morning, Clara was back to normal, laughing with her friends like nothing had happened. I saw her in the dining hall, her red nails tapping on a tray, her smile bright. She didn't remember a thing. No one talked about it openly, but the nuns watched her closely, and Father Michael left early. I tried to forget, but that night haunts me. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear a faint scratching sound, like nails on wood. And I wonder if Eleanor's still out there, waiting for someone else to claim. When I was 16, I lived in a small town called Willow Creek with my older brother, Mark. Our house was old, pieced together from parts of even older homes, with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind. My parents loved antiques, so every corner was filled with dusty furniture that seemed to watch you. My room was being renovated, so I was sleeping on a mattress in a tiny spare room, barely big enough for me to move around. It had 2 doors, one leading to a hallway, the other to a storage room packed with crates and shadows. I'd been sneaking listens to a heavy metal band called Night Reapers on my Walkman. Mark hated it. He said the lyrics were trouble, full of dark stuff that could mess with your head. One day, we were driving back from town, and I was blasting the music in his truck. He got mad, saying I shouldn't mess with that kind of thing. I was stubborn though, and snapped back. What's the big deal? It's just music. Maybe I like the dark stuff. I didn't mean it, but I wanted to get under his skin. His face tightened, and he yanked the tape out, tossing it out the window. I was furious, but deep down, I felt a flicker of unease, like I'd crossed a line I didn't understand. That night, I couldn't shake the argument. My words echoed in my head, and I regretted them. I didn't believe in that stuff. Demons, devils, any of it, but saying it out loud felt wrong, like I'd invited something to listen. The house was quiet when I went to bed, but it didn't feel right. The air was heavy, and the shadows in the corners seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. I left the light on in the storage room and kept the door open, just to feel less alone. I said goodnight to Mom and lay down, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm my nerves. I'd been lying there for maybe a minute when I heard its soft, quick footsteps crossing the wooden floor in the storage room. They were too light to be Mom or Dad, too strange to be Mark. In our house, you could always tell who was coming by the way the floors groaned, but these steps were different, almost playful, like a child sneaking around. My stomach twisted. "Mom?" I called, my voice shaking. No answer. Just silence, thick and suffocating. Then, the door to the storage room slammed shut. It wasn't a slow creak. It was fast, violent, like someone had thrown it with all their strength. The light vanished, plunging me into darkness so complete I couldn't see my own hands. At the same moment, I heard those footsteps again, faster now, skittering across the floor in my room. They came right up to the edge of my mattress, stopping inches from my head. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Whatever it wasn't human. No person could move like that, so quick and silent in the pitch black. I yanked the blanket over my head, my breath ragged. Sweat poured down my face, cold and clammy, sticking to my skin. I could feel it's something standing there, right beside me, watching. The air felt wrong, like it was pressing down, heavy with a presence I couldn't explain. My mind raced, picturing sharp claws, glowing eyes, something grinning in the dark. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen, trapped in my own skin. Was it still there? Had it moved closer? I couldn't tell. I don't know how long I stayed like that, seconds, maybe minutes. Time didn't make sense. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I threw off the blanket and bolted for the other door, my hands fumbling in the dark. I expected something to grab me, to feel cold fingers on my ankle, but nothing did. I made it to the hallway, my chest heaving, and ran to the garage where Mark and his friend were tinkering with a car. I spilled everything, my words tripping over each other. They came back with me, flashlights cutting through the gloom, but the room was empty. Nothing was out of place, except the storage room door. It was wide open again, the light spilling out like nothing had happened. Mark swore he hadn't done it. His friend backed them up, and I believed them. No one could have moved that fast, not in the dark, not without me hearing. I didn't sleep that night or the next. Every creak of the house, every shift of the shadows, made me jump. I kept thinking about those footsteps, how they'd stopped so close, like whatever it was had leaned over me, waiting. I never said anything stupid like that again, but sometimes, when I'm alone, I feel it, a faint pressure, a whisper of movement, like something's still listening, remembering what I said. I was 10 years old, living in a quiet neighborhood in Riverton, a small city tucked away in northern Maine. Our street was lined with modest houses, the kind where everyone knew each other's business. Nothing strange ever happened until the summer of 1978. That's when I saw something I'll never forget, something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it too long. It was the 20th of June, a warm evening with fireflies flickering in the dusk. I was riding my bike around the block, enjoying the last bit of daylight before Mom called me in. As I turned onto Maple Street, just a stone's throw from my house, I noticed a crowd gathered near the corner. Neighbors were huddled together, pointing at the ground, their faces pale and uneasy. Curiosity got the better of me, so I pedaled closer, my tires crunching on the gravel. When I saw what they were staring at, my stomach dropped. There, burned into the asphalt, were tracks, hundreds of them, stretching across the narrow street. They weren't normal footprints. They looked like hoof marks, small and split, like a goat's, but sharper, as if they'd been carved with a hot iron. The edges were blackened, scorched, and the air above them shimmered faintly, like heat rising from a fire. The tracks started in the middle of the road, out of nowhere, and stopped just as suddenly a few yards away. No trail led to them, no path away. It was as if something had appeared, walked a few steps, and vanished into thin air. I stood there, gripping my bike, my heart thudding. The marks were uneven, some deeper than others, like whatever made them was pacing, restless. I could almost picture it, a hunched figure, its hooves clicking on the pavement, its head turning to watch us. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, and I glanced around, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows of the nearby trees. The adults were whispering, their voices tight with fear. Someone mentioned calling the police, but what could they do? These weren't tire marks or graffiti. They were something else, something wrong. A local man, Mr. Harrow, showed up later that night. He was known around Riverton as a bit of an oddball, always talking about ghosts and strange happenings. He knelt by the tracks, his flashlight beam dancing over them. I heard him mutter that no paint or chemical could have made those marks. He said they were too precise, too deliberate, like they'd been branded into the earth by something not of this world. His words stuck with me, sinking deep into my bones. I didn't sleep that night, lying in bed with the curtains shut tight, listening for the sound of hooves outside my window. The next day, the tracks were still there, untouched by the morning dew. People came from all over town to see them, snapping pictures, murmuring about curses and old legends. Some said Riverton had a dark history, that folks in the woods nearby held secret meetings, chanting things they shouldn't. I didn't know what to believe, but I couldn't shake the feeling that those tracks were a warning or an invitation. I kept imagining something stepping out of the dark, its eyes glowing like embers, following the path it had burned into our street. Weeks passed, and the tracks never faded. Rain didn't wash them away. Sun didn't bleach them. They stayed, a scar on the road, and every time I rode by, I felt watched. One night, I woke up to a strange smell, like sulfur and damp earth, faint but sharp. My room was pitch black, but I could have sworn I heard a soft tap-tap outside, like something circling the house. I didn't dare look. I pulled the covers over my head, my breath shallow, praying it would leave. The smell was gone by morning, but I found scratches on the porch railing, thin and jagged, like claws had scraped across the wood. Looking back, I wonder if something came that summer, something that left its mark to let us know it was there. I'm older now, but I still avoid that corner of Maple Street when I visit Riverton. The tracks are gone, paved over years ago, but I can't help feeling that whatever made them isn't. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself listening, waiting for that tap-tap again, wondering if it's still out there, walking where no one can see. Ever since I was little, I've sensed things others couldn't. Growing up in a small house in Elmwood, Virginia, I'd point at shadows in corners, asking my grandparents, "Who's that?" They'd hush me, their faces tight, saying it was nothing. They were devout, believing anything strange was evil's work. My mom, though, just got scared easily, brushing off my questions with a nervous laugh. As I got older, friends teased me, calling me their psychic pal, because I'd warned them about bad vibes before trouble hit. I didn't think much of it, just a weird knack I had. But this year, at 18, something happened that shook me to my core. I was doing a 4-month internship at a community center in town, working alongside my mom and my boss, Ms. Lena. Lena was amazing kind, sharp and open to things like spirits and energies, just like me. The center was in an old building, once a schoolhouse, then a boarding house with a rough past. I'd always felt presences there, faint whispers, cold spots, even a playful spirit I called Tommy who'd nudge my pen off the desk. Mom laughed it off, but I knew he was real. Lately, though, the center felt heavier. We'd been grinding on a big funding report, and stress hung over us like a storm cloud. Mom was snappy, I was on edge, and even Lena noticed the air felt wrong. One morning, Lena called from home, saying the office needed a cleanse to clear the negativity. She told Mom to ask me to do it, knowing I'd done small rituals before. I was happy to help, eager to lift the tension. I grabbed salt from the break room, poured it into a bowl, and whispered a quick prayer over it, asking for peace. Starting in Mom's office, I pinched salt between my fingers, dusting it along the walls, murmuring words to purify the space. The building was quiet, just the hum of the air conditioner and the faint tick of a clock. I told Mom to turn off her music stream, wanting focus. Everything felt normal until it didn't. I was halfway through, sprinkling salt near the window, when a sound stopped me cold. It was a voice, deep and hollow, like it came from the bottom of a well. It wasn't outside, wasn't the radio, it was here, in the room, slithering into my ears. My skin prickled, goosebumps racing up my arms. I turned to Mom, ready to ask if she'd heard it, but her face told me everything. She was pale, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. She stared at me like she'd seen death itself. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely steady. She nodded, clutching her desk. The voice had been pure malice, heavy with a hatred that made my chest tight. I tried to keep going, finishing the cleanse, but my hands shook as I let the last grains of salt fall. Mom looked like she might bolt, her breath shallow. I felt it too, a presence, thick and oppressive, like the air was turning to oil. We moved to the back office, staying close, my heart pounding. Mom's eyes were wet, and she kept muttering. It sounded wrong, so wrong. I remembered a nightmare she'd had a month ago, one she'd barely mentioned, something dark whispering in her ear, urging her to hurt herself. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now it felt too real. I couldn't let it go. "Mom, let me cleanse you," I said. She hesitated. She'd had bad experiences with church rituals growing up, all fire and brimstone, but she finally agreed, trusting I'd keep it gentle. She sat in her chair, and I stood behind her, resting my hands on her shoulders, my chin against her hair. I closed my eyes, asking for protection, for whatever was clinging to her to leave. At first, nothing happened. Then Mom started shaking, soft sobs turning into gasps. She was tough, the strongest person I knew, but now she was unraveling, her voice breaking. "It's inside me," she choked out. "It's digging in my head. It hurts. Get it out, please." My blood ran cold. I tightened my grip, my own eyes stinging. The room felt smaller, the shadows sharper, like something was coiling around us. I could almost see it, a shape in the corner, formless but heavy, its presence pressing against my skull. Tommy, the spirit I knew, wasn't around. I sensed he was hiding, scared too. I spoke louder, my voice trembling but firm, telling whatever it was to leave my mom alone. "She's mine," I said, "not yours. You're nothing to her." Mom's sobs grew louder, then stopped, like a switch flipped. A rush of air hit me, cold and sharp, like a door had opened and slammed shut. The weight lifted, but my skin still crawled. Mom slumped in her chair, exhausted but calm, like a fever had broken. I stepped back, my legs shaky. We didn't talk much after, just sat there, catching our breath. Later, at home, I burned herbs and sprinkled salt in every room, desperate to keep that thing out. For weeks, I watched the windows at the center, catching glimpses of a dark shape flitting past, like it was testing the edges, trying to slip back in. It never did, but I felt its anger, its hunger. Mom and I had been fighting a lot before that day, snapping over nothing, but afterward, we were softer with each other, like we'd survived something together. I think that thing fed on our tension, twisting it into something worse. Now, when I'm alone, I sometimes feel a faint pressure, like a hand brushing my shoulder, reminding me it's still out there, waiting for a crack to slip through. When I was about 8, I lived with my mom in a creaky old apartment in Dunmore, a sleepy town in Oregon. Our place was small, with peeling paint and a long, narrow hallway that always felt too dark, even with the lights on. I shared a room with Mom back then, our beds squeezed together under a slanted ceiling that groaned in the wind. One night, everything changed, and I've never looked at that hallway the same since. It was late, probably past 10, when Mom and I got home from a friend's house. The air was chilly, and the streetlights barely reached our building's entrance. As we stepped inside, I glanced down the hallway toward our apartment door. That's when I saw it, a short, hunched figure standing there, draped in a tattered cloak, its hood pulled low. Where a face should have been, there was just darkness, a void that seemed to suck in the light. My heart stuttered, but I couldn't look away. It didn't move, just stood there, like it was waiting for me. I grabbed Mom's arm, my voice shaky. "Do you see that?" She looked, frowning, but shook her head. "There's nothing, sweetie." I looked again, and it was gone, like it had melted into the shadows. But I felt its stare linger, heavy and cold. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your ears strain for sound. I kept picturing that hooded thing, wondering if it was still out there, closer now. A week later, it got worse. I woke up in the middle of the night, my body frozen, like something was pinning me to the bed. My leg felt heavy, tugged by an invisible grip. I forced my eyes open, and there it was, crouching at the foot of my bed. No hood this time, just a twisted, leathery face with sunken eyes that glinted like wet stones. Its mouth was too wide, lined with jagged teeth, like something from a nightmare I couldn't wake from. It was pulling at my leg, its claws scraping my skin, leaving faint red marks I'd find later. I wanted to scream, to call for Mom sleeping just feet away, but my voice was trapped in my throat. My whole body felt locked, like I was drowning in my own skin. The thing's stare bored into me, and I swear it smiled, a slow, cruel curl of its lips. I could feel its thoughts, not words, but a pressure hunger, amusement, like I was a toy it wasn't done with. This went on for weeks, maybe months. Every few nights, I'd wake to that tugging, that stare, always when I felt most alone. The air would turn thick, smelling faintly of damp earth and something sour, like rot. I'd lie there, helpless, praying it wouldn't climb closer. One night, it pushed me too far. I woke again, feeling its weight on my leg, its claws tighter than before. That leathery face was inches from mine, its breath cold and sharp, like frost on a blade. Rage bubbled up through my fear. I didn't care what it was, I just wanted it gone. With everything I had, I swung my fist, aiming for those glinting eyes. My hand passed through air, but the thing flinched, its form flickering like smoke. It vanished, leaving the room silent except for my ragged breathing. My arm stung where I'd swung, and the air felt lighter, like a storm had passed. After that, I prayed every night, whispering words I barely understood, hoping they'd keep it away. It never came back, not like before, but I wasn't the only one who'd seen something. A few months ago, I was at my job in a Dunmore coffee shop, chatting with a coworker named Sam. He started talking about a creepy thing he'd seen as a kid, a creature by his bed, low and snarling, watching him sleep. I froze, my skin prickling, and finished his story for him, describing the claws, the eyes. His jaw dropped. We wondered if others in Dunmore had felt it too, if something was tied to this town, stalking kids in the dark. I still checked my locks at night, and when I walked that old hallway, I never looked behind me. Sometimes I feel a tug, faint but real, like it's still out there, waiting for me to slip. It was a crisp autumn day in the third week of November, and I was out running errands in the bustling town of Fairhaven, Massachusetts. The streets were alive with people, leaves skittering across sidewalks in the breeze. I decided to treat myself to a hot cider at a cozy cafe called Brew and Bean, a spot I loved for its warm lights and chatter. The place was packed as always, with folks sipping drinks and tapping on laptops. I grabbed my cider, the steam curling up in the chilly air, and headed outside, juggling my bag and keys. My wallet had slipped to the bottom of my purse, so I set my stuff on an empty outdoor table to sort it out, muttering to myself about always losing things. As I rummaged, a prickling feeling crept over me, like someone was staring. I've always trusted my instincts. They've warned me of trouble before, like that time I avoided a sketchy alley on a gut hunch. I turned, ready to glare at whoever was watching, maybe some creep lingering too long. But what I saw stopped me cold. Across the street, leaning against a brick wall, was a man. He looked ordinary at first: dark jeans, a gray sweater, no hat, just blending into the crowd. His hair was jet black, like my friend Leo's, and his skin had a slight pallor, nothing too strange for New England in fall. But his eyes were wrong. They were black, not just dark, but a solid, endless black, like staring into twin pits that swallowed light. No whites, no pupils, just voids. My breath hitched, and our gazes locked for a split second. It felt like ice water poured down my spine. There was something else, to a heaviness around him, a darkness that wasn't just shadow. It was like the air itself curdled, thick with a malice I couldn't explain. My mind screamed that this wasn't a person, not really. Whatever was behind those eyes wasn't human. It was wearing a body like a mask, and it knew I saw through it. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. His lips twitched, not quite a smile, more like he was amused, like a cat toying with a mouse. I felt a pressure in my head, not words, but a challenge, sharp and clear. You see me. What now? Run like the others? My heart pounded, but I forced myself to move, breaking eye contact with a slow, deliberate turn. I wasn't going to let it think I was scared, even though my hands were shaking as I stuffed my wallet back in my purse. Every nerve screamed to bolt, but I kept my pace steady, grabbing my cider and walking to my car parked a block away. I could feel those eyes on my back, boring into me, like a weight pressing harder with each step. The street felt too quiet now. The normal sounds, cars, voices, wind muffled, like the world was holding its breath. I didn't dare look back, but I swore I heard footsteps, soft and measured, matching mine. My car was close, but not close enough. The air grew colder, sharper, and a faint smell hit me, something acrid, like burnt metal. My key slipped in my sweaty palm, and I fumbled to unlock the door, expecting a hand to grab me any second. I slid inside, slammed the door, and locked it, my chest heaving. I risked a glance through the window. He was still there, across the street, standing under a lamppost now, just watching. That knot smile was wider, like he'd won something. I drove off, my hands tight on the wheel, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds. No one followed, but the feeling didn't leave. It clung to me, heavy and sour, like I'd brushed against something diseased. When I got home, I locked every door and window, even checked the closets, half expecting those black eyes to be waiting in the dark. I didn't sleep that night, replaying it over and over. What was he? Why me? I kept feeling that pressure again, like he was still out there, amused, waiting for another chance to test me. Now, I avoid that cafe. I can't shake the sense that he's still around, blending into crowds, watching from corners. Sometimes, when I'm out alone, I feel that prickling again, and I scan faces, terrified I'll see those eyes. I know now we're not alone here. Not just people walk these streets. Something else does too, wearing our skin, and it's hungry for those who notice. I was 17, living in a modest house in Carverton, a quiet suburb in Ohio. It was the 10th of April, around 7 in the evening, and I was home alone, sprawled on the living room couch with a book for school. My parents were out at a neighbor's card game, leaving the house silent except for the occasional creak of settling wood. The windows were dark, reflecting the glow of a single lamp, and a spring chill seeped through the glass. I was deep into my reading when a sudden coldness hit me, sharp and unnatural, like stepping into a freezer. My breath caught, and I froze, feeling something shift in the air, a presence, heavy and close, like someone had stepped into the room. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just my imagination. But the feeling grew, pressing against my chest, making my skin prickle. I set the book down, my hands trembling, and glanced around. The room looked normal, same faded couch, same cluttered coffee table, but it didn't feel right. The shadows in the corners seemed too deep, too still. I stood, my legs unsteady, and started toward the kitchen, hoping movement would break the spell. That's when I felt it again, stronger, like eyes boring into my back. I stopped, heart pounding, too scared to turn around. If I did, I was sure something would be there, waiting to lunch. I forced myself to keep walking, but the air thickened, carrying a faint smell like damp stone and something bitter like old blood. I reached the living room doorway and paused, trying to calm my breathing. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so close it brushed my ear, like someone was standing right behind me. "I'm here for you," it said, the voice low and hollow, like it came from a throat long dead. It wasn't my parents, wasn't anyone I knew. It was wrong, laced with a cold amusement that made my stomach twist. I spun around, expecting a face, a figure, but there was nothing, just the empty room, the lamp flickering slightly. Panic took over. I bolted to the front door, my socks slipping on the hardwood, and ran to the neighbor's house across the street. Mrs. Larson opened the door, her face creasing with worry as I stammered out what happened. She grabbed a flashlight and walked me back, checking every room, every closet. The house was empty, just as I'd left it, but the air still felt tainted, like that voice had left a stain. She patted my shoulder, saying I'd probably heard the wind or my nerves playing tricks. I nodded, wanting to believe her, but I knew better. That voice wasn't in my head, it was real, and it had wanted me to hear it. When my parents got home, I told them everything, my voice shaking. They listened, but their faces said they didn't believe me. "You're stressed from school," Dad said, ruffling my hair. Mom hugged me, promising I was safe, but I saw her glance at the dark windows, uneasy. I went to bed, leaving every light on, but sleep didn't come easily. Around 3 in the morning, I jolted awake, my heart racing. I didn't know why at first, just a gut-deep fear, like I'd been pulled from a nightmare I couldn't remember. Then it came again, that cold, piercing chill, wrapping around me like a shroud. The room was dark now, the lights inexplicably off, and I felt it, someone something in the room with me. The whisper returned, slower this time, each word dragging like a blade across stone. I'm still here. My scream tore through the silence, raw and desperate. My parents rushed in, flipping on the light, their faces pale. I babbled about the voice, the cold, but they held me, saying it was just a dream, that nothing could hurt me. I let them comfort me, but I knew they were wrong. The fear clung to me, heavy and real, like a hand resting on my shoulder. The next morning, I woke to a sick feeling, like the house itself was watching. I sat up and noticed something off my silver bracelet, a gift from my grandmother, wasn't on my nightstand where I'd left it. I searched frantically, tearing through drawers, under the bed, my panic rising. Then I saw it scattered across the floor, broken into pieces, the metal twisted and tarnished, streaked with dark red stains that looked too much like blood. My hand shook as I picked up a fragment, the metal cold and slick. I didn't tell my parents. I couldn't. I threw the pieces away, but the image stayed, burned into my mind. I've never heard that voice again, but it changed me. I don't stay home alone anymore, not if I can help it. Sometimes, when I'm in a quiet room, I catch that smell-damp stone, bitter rot, and my heart races, waiting for a whisper that never comes. I know what I felt that night wasn't human. It was something darker, something that saw me and wanted me to know it was there, patient and waiting. I've always loved hiking the trails around my hometown of Greystone, a small place nestled in the hills of Vermont. The woods were my escape, with their whispering pines and winding paths that felt like secrets waiting to be found. Usually, I'd go with my friend Nate, talking about life as we trekked, but sometimes I'd wander alone, letting the forest's quiet sink into me. One afternoon, though, something happened out there that I can't explain, something that makes me hesitate before stepping off the pavement now. It was a warm day in late summer, the kind where the air hums with cicadas. Nate came with me, and we took a familiar trail that looped past a rocky overlook. We were deep in conversation, big stuff, like what we wanted from life, what scared us most when I felt it. The forest went silent, dead silent, like someone flipped a switch. No birds, no breeze, not even the rustle of leaves. The air grew heavy, pressing against my skin, and a chill crawled up my neck despite the heat. I stopped, my boots crunching too loud on the dirt. Nate froze too, his words trailing off, his face pale. Then he dropped. Not a stumble, he collapsed to his knees, head bowed, hands limp at his sides, like he was praying to something I couldn't see. I called his name, my voice sharp, but he didn't move. I grabbed his shoulders, trying to pull him up, but he was heavy, rooted, like the earth itself was holding him down. My heart raced, and I scanned the trees, feeling eyes on me, unseen but close. The sky, clear moments ago, turned slate gray, the sunlight swallowed by a creeping gloom. Shadows stretched longer, twisting into shapes that didn't fit the trees. I looked down the trail, and there it was, a figure, tall and dark, standing maybe 20 feet away. It was bigger than me, and I'm no short guy, pushing 6 feet. It wore a long, tattered coat, black as oil, that seemed to ripple like liquid. Its face was hidden at first, but when it raised its head, I saw eyes yellow, glowing faintly, like embers in a dying fire. A wave of disgust hit me, raw and sour, mixed with a hatred so strong it felt like it was coming from the thing itself. My stomach churned, but I couldn't look away. It stepped closer, silent, its presence crushing, like the air was turning to stone. I broke eye contact, staring at Nate, still kneeling, unresponsive. Then it spoke, not out loud but in my head, clear as a bell. "Look at me." The voice was deep, commanding, laced with a cold amusement. I knew it was bad evil, even, but part of me wanted to obey, like a moth drawn to a flame. I fought it, clenching my fists, but my head turned anyway, slow, like it wasn't mine to control. It was closer now, barely a yard away, and I saw more. Wings, huge, jagged things sprouting from its back. One was skeletal, thin bones like a bat's, rattling softly. The other was rotting, feathers falling away, exposing raw, oozing flesh. The smell hit me decay, sharp and wet, like a grave left open. We stood there, locked in a silent stare, my breath shallow. Its eyes burned into me, and I felt it probing, like it was peeling back my thoughts, seeing everything I was. It raised a hand, one long finger pointing at my chest, and that twisted smile widened. "I'll find you again," it said, each word heavy, sinking into me. "Don't forget what you owe." The words didn't make sense, but they felt like a chain tightening around my heart. It told me to kneel, just like Nate, but I shook my head, defiance burning through my fear. Its smile faltered, and a flash of rage crossed its face, those eyes flaring brighter. I felt a stab in my chest, like my soul was being torn, and I gasped, clutching my shirt. Then it laughed, a low, grating sound that echoed inside my skull, and turned, gliding into the trees. The moment it vanished, Nate snapped up, blinking, like he'd just woken up. "What's wrong?" he asked, confused. I tried to explain, but he swore we'd just been talking, that I'd zoned out for a second. I looked around, and the forest was different. The trees near us were bare, their bark gray and cracked, the ground dry as dust. It wasn't like that before we'd been surrounded by green just minutes ago. Nate couldn't explain it either, but he brushed it off, saying I looked spooked. I still hike those trails, but I stick to the edges now, never going too deep. That spot on the trail hasn't changed, dead trees, barren ground, like something sucked the life out of it. I don't know what it meant by "what you owe," but its voice lingers, sharp and cold, when I'm alone at night. Sometimes I wake to that smell, rotting feathers. DMP Earth, and I check the windows, half expecting those yellow eyes in the dark. I haven't seen it again, but I feel it out there, waiting, knowing my name. When my son, Ethan, was 2.5, we lived in a small house in Pine Hollow, a quiet town in Wisconsin. He was always a sensitive kid, noticing things I couldn't, like cold patches in rooms or chairs rocking on their own. He babbled to empty corners, giggling like someone was there, or point at walls, saying, "Lights, mommy, lights." I'd smile, thinking it was just his imagination, but part of me wondered. Our house was old, with warped floors and windows that rattled at night, and sometimes I felt watched, though I brushed it off. But what happened with Ethan changed everything, and I'll never doubt him again. It started with his nightmares. He'd wake up screaming, his little voice raw with fear, begging me to get him. He wouldn't leave his room unless I said it was okay, like he was waiting for permission. When I'd scoop him up, his skin was cold, his eyes rimmed with dark circles, like he hadn't slept in days. He'd cling to me, trembling, and I'd feel drained, like something was pulling at my strength through him. He started talking about a man with big eyes who sat by his bed, rocking back and forth, whispering he was bad for wanting me. "He chases me," Ethan would say, down the hall, yelling I'm naughty. My heart broke, but I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a believer in spirits or demons, but his fear was real, and it was tearing him apart. The house felt different after that. Lights flickered without reason, and I'd catch a whiff of something sharp, like burnt wood or ash, gone as soon as I noticed it. Ethan's toys would move, cars lined up in perfect rows when no one touched them, or dolls turned to face the wall. He said a friend did it, someone who missed him when he visited his dad, but it didn't feel friendly to me. One night, a bulb shattered above us, glass raining down, and I swear I heard my name hissed in the dark, low and angry. My necklace, a star charm Ethan loved, burned against my chest, leaving a red mark I couldn't explain. Yet sometimes, a soft scent of lavender would drift through, calming us, and Ethan would smile, saying, "He's here." He started mentioning Leo, a name I'd never heard. Leo was big with wings, and he made the bad man go away. Ethan would cry himself out, then suddenly relax, falling asleep with a peaceful look, murmuring about Leo keeping him safe. I was desperate, so when a friend suggested a spiritual shop in town, I took Ethan there. The owner, a kind woman named Mara, took one look at him and knelt down, her eyes soft but serious. She asked about the man by his bed, and Ethan pointed to a corner, like he could see him even then. When she asked about Leo, his face lit up, and he pointed to a picture on the wall, a glowing figure with wings, holding a sword. Mara's eyes welled up. "That's Gabriel," she said, voice trembling. "In their tongue, he's called Leo by the pure-hearted." She gave us herbs and candles, teaching me a ritual to clear the house. That night, Ethan was different, braver, like he knew something I didn't. We lit the candles, their flames flickering in the dark, and sprinkled salt at the doors. Ethan grabbed my hand, tugging me through the house, pointing at shadows. "There, Mommy, chase him," he'd say, his voice fierce. I couldn't see anything, but the air was heavy, like a storm brewing inside the walls. We reached the front door, and a coldness hit me sharp, bone deep, like ice wrapping around my legs, climbing higher. It burned, not with heat, but with a wrongness that made my insides twist. I gasped, clutching Ethan, afraid I'd collapse. He yanked the door open, his small frame trembling but strong. "Gabriel, help Mommy," he shouted, his voice clear and loud, echoing in the night. "You're not allowed here. Go away. Go to the light. Don't be scared." The cold surged, then released, like something tore free. The door slammed shut on its own, and I stood there, shaking, my jeans damp from fear. Ethan let go of my hand and walked to the living room, calm as anything. He grabbed his favorite stuffed bear, curled up on the couch, and asked for his cartoon show, like nothing had happened. I stared at him, my heart swelling, seeing not just my boy but something bigger, something fearless. "Are you okay?" I asked, voice barely steady. He looked up, blue eyes bright, and said, "I just want to play now, Mommy. It's gone." That was 4 years ago. Ethan's almost 7 now, and we've moved to a new place, one that feels lighter, cleaner. He doesn't talk about the man with big eyes anymore, but he keeps a small drawing of wings by his bed, a gift from Mara. 6 months ago, he dug out a box of old cards we'd bought at the shop, ones with angels and soft colors. He spread them on the floor, closed his eyes, and picked one without looking. It was Gabriel, sword raised, light spilling around him. Ethan grinned and said, "See, Mommy? He's still here." He collects stones now, reads those cards, and sometimes stares at the sky like he's listening. I don't push him, but I feel it my boy's special, touched by something I can't fully grasp. I love him no matter what, but holding him at night, knowing he's faced darkness and come through, feels like holding a piece of the divine. Our old house still stands in Pine Hollow, empty last I checked. I drive by sometimes, and the windows seem to watch me, dark and quiet. I wonder if that thing's still there, lurking, or if Ethan's light chased it out for good. But when I smell ash on the wind or hear a creak too close, I hold my star charm tight, praying Leo's watching over us both. I live in a small town called Redfern, tucked away in rural Kentucky, where life moves slow, and the most exciting thing is usually a Friday night football game. It's just houses, a gas station, and fields stretching out to nowhere. I've always felt safe here, like nothing could touch me. But a few days before Halloween, on the 28th of October, something happened that turned my quiet world upside down. And I haven't driven those back roads alone since. I was driving my friend Caleb home after grabbing burgers in town. It was around 8:30 at night, the sky already black, with only my headlights cutting through the dark. The road was narrow, winding past old barns and cornfields, the kind of place where you feel like the only person alive. I had the radio low, some country tune humming, and the AC cranked because I was sweating, though I didn't know why. Then it hit me a jolt of dread, sharp and sudden, like a warning bell in my chest. My heart started racing, and my hands tightened on the wheel. I've always had a knack for sensing trouble, like the time I pulled over just before a tree fell across the road. But this was different, darker, heavier, like something was waiting up ahead. I slowed down, scanning the shadows, when a shape moved into the road, maybe 100 feet away. It was a dog big, black and sleek, crossing the pavement with a slow, deliberate stride. I hit the brakes, stopping about 10 feet from it, my headlights washing over its fur. It didn't flinch, didn't run like a normal animal would. It just stood there, smack in the middle of the road, staring right at me. I leaned forward, squinting, and that's when I saw its eyes. They weren't reflecting the light like a dog should. They glowed, a sickly reddish gold, like embers smoldering in a fire. My breath caught, and I felt Caleb tense beside me, his hand gripping the armrest. "What is that thing?" he whispered, but I couldn't answer. Those eyes held me, unblinking, and a coldness spread through me, like ice seeping into my bones. The air in the truck felt wrong, thick with a smell I hadn't noticed before, something musky, like wet fur and decay. The dog didn't move, just stared, and I swear it knew me, like it was peeling back my thoughts, seeing every fear I'd ever had. I flicked on my high beams, hoping to scare it off, but its eyes only burned brighter, and for a second, I thought I saw its mouth curl, like it was smiling. I don't know how long we sat there, seconds, maybe a minute, but it felt like forever. Then, slow as anything, it turned and walked off the road, melting into the tall grass. I hit the gas, my tires squealing, desperate to get away. I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see it trailing us, but there was nothing, just empty road stretching into the dark. My hands shook as I drove, and Caleb was quiet, his face pale. "It's gone," he said finally, but I wasn't so sure. That feeling, that dread, clung to me, heavy and sour, like I'd brushed against something I shouldn't have. When I dropped Caleb off, I sped home, locking the door behind me. I tried to sleep, but my mind kept replaying those eyes, that smile. A few nights later, it got worse. I woke up gasping, my room pitch black, the air thick with that same musky stench. My heart pounded, and I fumbled for the lamp, half expecting to see that dog crouched at the foot of my bed. The light came on, showing nothing, but the fear didn't leave. Then I remembered a dream vivid, too real. I was in my room, scrolling on my phone, when the screen froze. A shadow moved in the doorway, tall and human-shaped, wearing a long, dark coat. It stepped closer, and I saw its face red, cracked like burnt earth, with those same reddish gold eyes from the dog. Horns curled from its head, and its breath was foul, like rotting meat, curling out in wisps of smoke. It didn't speak at first, just stared, its presence crushing, like it was sucking the air from the room. Then it leaned close, its voice low and rough. "It's coming," it said, holding up a pocket watch, the hands frozen at midnight. It reached for me, claws grazing my neck, and I woke up, choking, the smell of rot still in my nose. I checked my windows, my doors, everything locked, but I didn't feel safe. That dream felt like a message, a promise that whatever I'd seen wasn't done with me. I don't go out at night anymore, not if I can help it. I've cleansed my room with sage, kept a cross by my bed, but it doesn't shake the feeling that something's watching. Those eyes follow me, in dreams and quiet moments, and sometimes, driving past those fields, I catch a flicker in the grass, a shadow too big to be a stray. I know it's out there, waiting for the right moment to step back into the light. It was Halloween night in 2008, and I was in the thick of a school party in my hometown of Willow Creek, New Jersey. The elementary school cafeteria was decked out for the occasion orange streamers draped across the ceiling, plastic pumpkins glowing on tables, and a DJ spinning kid-friendly tunes under flickering strobe lights. I'd brought my two kids, Emma and Lucas, who were buzzing with excitement, darting through the crowd in their costumes. The room was warm, loud with laughter, but I needed a break from the chaos. So I slipped outside to the parking lot for a quick moment alone, figuring I could still keep an eye on them through the big windows. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of fallen leaves, and the lot was quiet, except for the muffled music leaking from the school. I leaned against my car, lighting a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating the dark. As I exhaled, my eyes wandered to the edge of the lot, where a line of tall oaks marked the start of the woods. That's when I saw it, a tiny bright light, no bigger than a firefly, dancing among the treetops. It was orange, vivid against the black branches, moving in jerky, erratic loops like a moth caught in a breeze. At first, I thought it was a reflection, maybe from the school's Halloween lights, but it was too high, too deliberate, floating 20 feet above the ground. I squinted, my cigarette forgotten, watching it bob and weave. My gut tightened, something about it felt off. Not playful, but restless, like it was searching. I tried to rationalize it. A drone, maybe, or a kid's toy rigged for a prank. But the woods were empty. No hum of motors, no voices. The light paused, hovering, and I swear it pulsed, brighter for a second, like it knew I was watching. A chill ran through me, not from the cold, but from a deeper unease, the kind that tells you you're not alone. I glanced back at the school, checking for Emma and Lucas through the window, their silhouettes safe among the crowd. When I looked back, the light was closer, drifting toward the edge of the trees, its glow casting faint shadows that didn't match the branches. My heart picked up and I took a step forward, drawn to it despite myself. I told myself I was being silly. It was just a light, nothing more. But my feet kept moving, crunching on gravel as I crossed the lot. The air grew heavier, tinged with a faint, sweet smell, like overripe fruit, unnatural for October. The light flickered, then shot toward the tree line, vanishing into the dark. I stopped, my breath shallow, staring at the spot where it disappeared. The woods were silent. I felt it, a presence, subtle but real, like eyes just out of sight. I scanned the lot, half expecting to see someone hiding, but there was nothing, just parked cars and a lone street lamp buzzing faintly. I walked to the edge of the lot, closer to the trees, my pulse loud in my ears. The ground was soft, littered with leaves, and I noticed something odd. A patch of grass, small but distinct, was flattened, like something had stood there, pressing down with weight. I froze, my cigarette falling to the ground, its ember hissing out. The sweet smell was stronger now, cloying, and the air felt charged, like before a storm. I backed away, my eyes darting to the treetops, but the light was gone. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that it hadn't left. It was still there, hidden, watching me walk away. Back at the party, I slipped inside, the noise and warmth hitting me like a wall. Emma and Lucas were fine, laughing with friends, but I kept glancing out the windows, half expecting that light to reappear. It didn't, but the unease stayed, coiling in my chest. Later, driving home, I kept my eyes on the road, avoiding the dark woods lining the street. That night, I checked the locks twice, and when I closed my eyes, I saw that light, pulsing in the dark, like it was calling me back. I don't know what it was. Some say spirits roam on Halloween, slipping through the cracks, but I know it saw me. And I feel it still, waiting in those trees for me to wander too close again. It was a sunny Sunday in late October of 2008, and I was driving to my parents' house for dinner in the rural outskirts of Millwood, Tennessee. My daughter, Sophie, was buckled in the front seat, humming to herself, her backpack stuffed with crayons for the evening. The trip was short, about 5 miles from our place in town, but the road was twisty, cutting through dense woods and rolling hills. I was running late, so I pushed the gas a little, the tires humming on the pavement. The air was golden, leaves drifting across the road, but something felt off, like the light was too sharp, the shadows too heavy. I came around a tight curve, the trees crowding close. When I saw it, a shape on the edge of the road, right where the asphalt met a gravel driveway. My heart lurched and I swerved hard to the left, tires screeching, barely missing it. Sophie gasped, gripping her seatbelt. I slowed down, my hands shaking, and glanced over to get a better look. It was sitting there, legs stretched out into the driveway, its back to the road, slumped like a discarded scarecrow. At first, I thought it was a prank some Halloween decoration kids had tossed out to spook drivers. It wore all black ragged coat, wide-brimmed hat, with straight greasy hair hanging past its shoulders. The way it sat so still, so wrong, made my skin crawl. I eased the car forward, keeping my eyes on it. "What is that, Mom?" Sophie whispered, her voice small. I didn't answer, too focused on the figure. Its coat looked lumpy, like it was stuffed with straw or worse, and the air around it felt thick, carrying a faint smell like damp moss and something sour, like spoiled milk. I was mad now, thinking whoever put it there could have caused a wreck. But then it moved. Not much, just a slight turn of its head, enough for me to see its face or what passed for one. It was sunken, wrinkled, like a shriveled apple left too long in the sun, and black, not like skin but like shadow, smooth and unnatural. Its eyes glinted, just for a second, catching the light like wet glass. I froze, my foot hovering over the gas. Sophie whimpered, "Mom, go!" and I snapped out of it, flooring the pedal. The car surged forward, the figure shrinking in my rearview mirror, but I swear it turned more, watching us leave. My heart was pounding, my palms sweaty on the wheel. The rest of the drive was a blur. The woods pressing in, every shadow looking like it might move. When we got to my parents' house, I spilled the story to my mom, my voice shaking. I called it a troll, half joking, because what else could it be? She laughed, saying it was probably some teenager in a costume, but Sophie backed me up, her eyes wide. "It wasn't a person," she said, and I believed her. Mom's laugh didn't ease the knot in my chest. Why would anyone sit there, on a blind curve, where a car could hit them? The spot was dangerous, the driveway belonging to an empty old house no one had lived in for years. I couldn't shake the image of that face, those eyes, like they'd seen right through me. Driving home that night, I took a different route, avoiding that road, but I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see it standing in the dark, waiting. I've never seen it again, but I think about it every time I pass that stretch of highway. The driveway's still there, overgrown now, and I speed up when I get close, my stomach twisting. My family teases me about my troll, but I don't talk about it much anymore. Sophie doesn't either. She just gets quiet when we drive through the woods. Sometimes at night, I wake up smelling that sour, mossy stench, and I check on her, making sure she's safe. I don't know what it was, sitting there like it owned the road, but I know it wasn't a joke. It was something else, something old and patient, and I pray it's forgotten us. Ever since I was a kid growing up in a quiet house in Ashwood, Oregon, I've had strange experiences at night. I'd wake up frozen, my body locked, fully aware but unable to move, like something was holding me down. It terrified me back then, screaming to break free, worrying my parents sick. By my teens, it happened less, but one afternoon at 15, napping on a lumpy couch, I felt my legs lift, floating above me while my head stayed pinned. It sparked a curiosity I couldn't shake. In college, I dove into books about astral projection, even messed with some risky stuff, trying to trigger it, but nothing worked, just faint tingles, like static on my skin. As a doctor now, working long shifts in a Portland hospital, I chalked it all up to brain quirks, sleep paralysis, nothing more. I'm a skeptic, grounded in what I can touch and see. But last night, everything I thought I knew unraveled. For the past year, about once a month, I'd wake from deep sleep to a rush, like I was shooting toward the ceiling, my body paralyzed but my mind sharp. It wasn't scary anymore, just odd, like a glitch I could study. I'd lie there, calm, waiting for it to pass, my skin buzzing faintly after. I'd read about breaking through an astral projection, so I'd try, focusing hard, but I'd always snap awake, nothing more. Last night, though, was different. My girlfriend, Sarah, woke me around 4 in the morning, heading to an early shift at the bakery. It was raining outside, a soft patter against the windows, and I drifted back to sleep, half awake, my mind foggy. I had a vivid dream first, me fighting some shadowy beast to save a crowd, power surging through me like I was untouchable. It felt like any other dream, thrilling but normal, fading as I stirred. Then it happened. Lying in bed, eyes closed, I felt that familiar paralysis, but stronger, like chains tightening around me. My heart skipped, and I sensed someone in the room, not Sarah, not anyone I knew. I opened my eyes, or thought I did, my vision blurry, like looking through fog. A woman stood by my bed, tall and still, her outline sharp against the dark. At first, I thought Sarah had come back, maybe forgotten something, but this wasn't her. Her hair was long, dark, and her clothes, loose, pale, like a gown, seemed to shimmer faintly. I tried to call out, but my voice was gone, my body locked. She moved closer, silent, and I saw her face. Pale, too smooth, with eyes that didn't blink. Just stared deep and endless, like pools of ink. Fear should have hid me, but it didn't. I felt calm, almost pulled to her, like she wanted me to see something. Then the buzzing started, not the usual tingle, but a roar, like electricity surging through every nerve. It was overwhelming, like my body was a live wire, shaking with power I couldn't control. I felt that rush again, stronger, pulling me up, and I leaned into it, desperate to break free. Suddenly, I rolled not my body, but something else, like slipping out of my skin. I was out, floating above my bed, my room clear but strange, the edges soft, like a painting smudged wet. I could see myself below, still lying there, eyes closed, chest rising slow. The sight should have rattled me, but I felt sharp, alive, like I'd woken up for the first time. The woman was still there, standing by the bed, but now she moved, gliding toward the wall. I watched, half paralyzed still, my vision narrow, like peering through slits. She passed through the wall, her form rippling, and I felt a tug, like she was pulling me with her. I willed myself to follow, floating jerky, my thoughts racing. The air crackled, thick with that electric hum, and I smelled something, ozone, sharp and clean, mixed with something older, like damp stone. I drifted toward the ceiling, trying to push through, but I sank back slow, settling into my body again. The buzz faded, but my skin still sang, like I'd touched a live current. I tried again, focusing hard, and rolled out once more. This time, I was upright, wobbling like I'd had too much wine. My room looked different, brighter, but tilted, like I was seeing it through warped glass. I brushed the wall, and it felt solid, real, not like a dream at all. I floated lower, landing against my nightstand, propped at an odd angle, weightless but tethered. I stayed there, maybe 10 minutes, my mind spinning. What was this? Who was she? The woman's presence lingered, not in the room but in me, like she'd left a piece behind. Finally, I rolled back, snapping into my body, my eyes flying open. The room was normal rain tapping, clock glowing 5:30, but I was different, buzzing with a truth I couldn't deny. I've spent all day replaying it, giddy and shaken. It wasn't my brain misfiring. This was real, something beyond the world I know. That woman, whatever she was, gave me a glimpse, a key to something bigger. I think back to when I was a kid, always eager for bed. Not because I was tired, but because the night felt alive, like I was meant for it. I dream of flying over rooftops, seeing places I'd never been, colors too bright, music too sweet. Maybe I've always known there's more, and last night she showed me the door. I'm still a skeptic, but now I wonder, what's waiting out there, and will she come back to pull me through again? When I close my eyes tonight, I half hope to see her, and half fear what she might show me next. For about a year and a half, I'd been meditating regularly, maybe 4 or 5 times a week, in my small apartment in a quiet Sydney suburb. Each session felt like a doorway to something bigger. A few times 5, to be exact, I'd wake up buzzing with excitement, my mind flooded with ideas I couldn't have dreamed up on my own. It was like kind beings were slipping me secrets during those deep 20-minute trances. When I jotted down what I learned, it always felt warm, useful, like advice for living better. But the last time, on the 10th of May, 2 years ago, something else came through, something that still claws at my thoughts. That afternoon, around 4 in the evening, I settled onto my bed. The TV hummed faintly in the background, casting flickering shadows across the room. My body sank into the mattress, warm and heavy, as I slipped into that familiar meditative zone. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath. Through the corner of my eye, I caught movement near the bedroom door, which I'd left slightly ajar. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. But then I saw it, a dark, rippling shape, like a tattered cloak swaying in a breeze that wasn't there. It glided closer, bobbing unnaturally, as if guided by some unseen hand. My heart stuttered, but I couldn't move. The thing hovered near my face, close enough that I could feel a cold prickle against my skin. As I exhaled, it seemed to pulse, matching the rhythm of my breath. Then, as I inhaled, it surged forward, slipping into my mouth like icy smoke. I felt it, a sharp, invasive presence coiling inside me, twisting through my chest. Panic clawed at my mind, but it happened so fast, there was no time to fight. With my next exhale, it rushed out, and I swear it took something with it. My vision blurred, my body went limp, and suddenly, I was nowhere. I woke in a void, pure, suffocating black. No sound, no light, just me, floating in nothing. Confusion choked me at first, but then it hit like a blade. I was dead. The thought sank into me, heavy and final. Images flickered in the darkness, like a film reel spinning too fast. My childhood, my choices, my face today, all sharp and vivid. Every moment I'd ignored, every chance I'd let slip, glowed painfully clear. It was as if someone wiser was judging me, showing me the life I could have had if I'd paid attention. Regret burned through me, bitter and raw. The silence pressed harder, wrapping me in despair. I mourned the life I'd wasted, the clarity I'd never had when it mattered. Tears stung my eyes, but there was no one to hear me cry. I was alone, trapped in this endless dark, with no way back. My chest ached with the weight of it all, knowing I'd failed myself, knowing it was final. But then, a faint whisper stirred in my mind, not words, but a feeling, reminding me of something I'd buried deep. A purpose, something I was meant to do. It flickered like a dying ember, and before I could grasp it, I jolted awake. I was back in my bed, gasping, the TV still droning. My hands trembled as I touched my face, my throat, checking I was real. The room felt colder now, the shadows sharper. I haven't meditated since. Sometimes, late at night, I feel that same prickle on my skin, like something's waiting for me to breathe it in again. Back in 1995, I lived in a small town outside Leeds, England, with my daughter, Emma, who was 17 at the time. She just passed her driving test, and we'd scraped together enough to buy her a used 2-door hatchback. It was nothing fancy, but she loved it. Our driveway was narrow, barely wide enough for one car, so Emma often parked behind me when she got home late. That meant I had to shuffle her car out of the way to get mine out from my early work shifts. One morning, around 4:15, I was getting ready to head to the factory. It was still dark outside, the kind of heavy dark that swallows everything beyond your headlights. Emma had come home late the night before, as usual, leaving her car blocking mine. I sighed, grabbed her keys, and headed out into the chilly air. The street was silent, the only sound my boots crunching on the gravel. I started her car, the engine coughing to life, and backed it onto the street. I left the driver's door open and the engine running to keep it warm, the interior light casting a faint glow inside. As I walked back to my car, something made me glance over my shoulder. My stomach twisted. In the back seat of Emma's car, on the near side, sat a young woman. She was clear as day, her pale face lit by the interior light, her head bent slightly as if she was brushing her hair or checking her reflection. Her dress looked old-fashioned, like something from decades past, with a high collar and faded lace. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. There was no way anyone could have gotten in. Emma was asleep inside, and the car had been locked all night. My mind raced, telling me it was a trick of the shadows, but she was too real, too solid. I took a step closer, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The air felt colder now, clinging to my skin like damp cloth. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. She didn't move, didn't look up, just sat there, her hands busy with something I couldn't see. A chill crawled up my spine, and I bolted toward the car, half expecting to catch some prankster. But when I reached the open door and peered inside, the back seat was empty. No trace of her, no smudge on the seat, no lingering scent, nothing. I stood there, my breath fogging in the pre-dawn air, staring at the empty car. The interior light flickered once, then steadied, mocking me. I slammed the door shut and backed my own car out, my hands shaking on the wheel. All day at work, I couldn't shake the image of her face pale, almost glowing, with eyes I hadn't quite seen but felt watching me. I didn't tell Emma for years, not wanting to scare her. When I finally did, she went quiet, then admitted she'd always felt something in that car, a presence behind her when she drove. Not threatening but always there, like a shadow she couldn't shake. Now, when I think back, I wonder if that woman's still tied to that car, waiting in the dark for someone to notice her. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see her staring back. When I moved into my new house in a quiet neighborhood outside Boise, Idaho, I didn't know it had once been part of an old military base. I'd heard rumors about a plane crash in the 1970s that killed a few pilots nearby, and whispers about an unsolved case, a killer who'd stalked the area for years, never caught. Those stories felt distant, like history that couldn't touch me. But from the moment I settled in, strange things started happening. Small at first, then impossible to ignore. Every day, I'd notice oddities lights flickering for no reason, faint creaks from empty rooms, shadows that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. At first, I brushed it off as an old house settling, but the air always felt heavy, like someone was watching. After a few months, I started feeling off, sinking into sadness I couldn't explain, reaching for whiskey more than I should. The house seemed to feed on it, growing darker with my mood. One night, after too many drinks, I made a mistake that changed everything. I was sitting in the living room with a friend, the bottle half empty between us. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. On a whim, I laughed and invited whatever was in the house to join us. The moment the words left my mouth, the room changed. The lights dimmed, and a coldness settled over me, like I'd plunged into icy water. My friend stared at me, her face pale, and later she swore my eyes had gone black, my voice twisting into something guttural, words she couldn't understand. I don't remember it, but I felt a heaviness in my chest, like something was pressing me down. She left in a hurry, and I was alone again, or so I thought. A few nights later, I woke up in bed, my heart racing. The room was pitch black, but not empty. A dark cloud hung over me, not smoke, but something denser, pulsing like it was alive. It filled the space, curling toward the ceiling, and I couldn't breathe right, my lungs tight with fear. I reached for my husband, shaking him awake. When he sat up, his eyes weren't his. They were too wide, too dark, and his voice came out wrong deep, like it came from somewhere else. It said it wasn't him. I froze, my skin crawling as he stared through me. He later told me he felt trapped, like something had pushed him aside in his own body. Things got worse. One night, I lay in bed, unable to move, my mind locked in a silent battle. A voice slithered through my thoughts, cold and sharp, urging me to turn away from everything I believed in, to give in. It wasn't me thinking, it was something else, invading my head. I fought back, clinging to my faith, begging for help. The pressure lifted, like a predator retreating, but it left me shaken. The house turned against me after that. I'd hear whispers in empty rooms, feel icy touches on my neck when I was alone. I stopped showering without the door locked, sent my kids to stay with relatives, too afraid to let them near whatever was here. Finally, I called in people from a local church to bless the house. They told me to stop drinking, to clear my mind. I did, pouring out every bottle, desperate for peace. That same night, as I lay in bed, something scratched at my window, a voice hissing for me to let it in. It wasn't human. It was too low, too jagged. I shouted back, my voice trembling but firm, refusing it. The scratching stopped, but I knew it wasn't gone, just waiting. We moved soon after, leaving that house behind. I still pray for whoever lives there now, hoping they never feel that shadow pressing down on them. On the 30th of September, 2015, I stopped by a grocery store in my small town outside Bristol, England, to grab a few things for meals that day. I picked up a red onion, a sweet yellow onion, a pack of thin sliced bread, a dozen eggs, and a jar of mustard. Back home, I made a sandwich for lunch, slicing off the root end of the red onion and peeling away one thick layer for the sandwich. I wrapped the rest carefully and tucked it into the vegetable drawer in my fridge, exactly where I always kept onions. The rest of the day passed quietly, just another ordinary afternoon. But the next morning, something wasn't right. I opened the fridge to start breakfast, and my eyes landed on the red onion, not in the drawer where I'd left it, but sitting on the middle shelf, where I'd first placed it when I got home from the store. It was whole. Not just whole like I'd imagined cutting it, but perfectly untouched. No slice marks, no missing layer, no trace of what I'd done. My skin prickled, a cold shiver running down my arms. I stood there, staring at it, the fridge door still open, letting out a faint hum that seemed louder in the silence. I tried to make sense of it. No one else lived with Miss. No roommates, no family, no one who could have swapped the onion as a prank. The doors were locked, the windows shut tight. I stepped back, my breath shallow, and headed to the kitchen bin, desperate to prove I wasn't losing it. There, buried under some scraps, was the root end of the red onion I'd cut off the day before, exactly as I remembered it. My stomach twisted. I looked back at the fridge, half expecting the onion to be gone, but it was still there, sitting on the shelf like it was mocking me. The air in the kitchen felt wrong, heavier than it should have been. For weeks before this, I'd been reading about parallel worlds, diving into ideas about dimensions overlapping, places where time and reality might slip. I'd even started asking out loud, alone in my house, if anything out there could hear me, if something could send a sign. It was half a joke, half a dare, but now I wondered if I'd invited something I didn't understand. The onion wasn't just an onion anymore. It was a tear in what I thought was real. I shut the fridge door and backed away, my heart thudding. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath, waiting for me to notice something else. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the onion, the bin, the counter, anything to anchor myself. Even now, I keep those photos, and sometimes I stare at them, wondering if I should have tested that onion somehow, compared it to the scrap I'd thrown away. It's been years, but I can't shake it. Every time I open my fridge, I brace myself, half expecting to see something that doesn't belong, something that knows I'm looking. When I was 14, back around the 13th or 15th of August, I spent a summer evening at my aunt's house in a quiet coastal town near Brighton, England. My family's always been open to the strange. My grandmother used to tell tales of spirits and signs, calling us a line of seers. I loved that stuff, especially messing with Ouija boards. There was something thrilling about reaching into the unknown, like whispering to the shadows and waiting for an answer. That night, my mom, my two aunts, and I gathered in the dim kitchen. The board spread out on the table, ready to see what might come through. The air felt heavy as we started, the candlelight flickering against the walls. Almost right away, something connected, a presence that moved the planchette fast. But it was confusing, like it was speaking in a language none of us knew, all sharp consonants and strange rhythms. It unnerved me, but we moved on, letting it go. Then another presence came through, quick and clear. It felt different, softer, like a sigh in the room. It was a little girl, and she told us her name was Lily. For nearly an hour, I felt her with us, her energy delicate but steady. The planchette glided under my fingers, spelling out answers about her life, how old she was, why she lingered in this old house by the sea. The kitchen seemed to shrink, the shadows pooling deeper in the corners. My aunt's dogs, usually restless, sat still, their eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. Then things turned strange. The cats, who'd been dozing, bolted from the hallway toward the back door in the kitchen, where my back was turned. They froze there, staring up at the top of the doorframe, their fur bristling. My skin prickled, like the air had grown colder just behind me. I asked Lily if we were alone. The planchette slid to no. My heart thudded, but I kept my hand steady. She spelled out that someone else was by the door, the same presence we brushed off earlier, the one that didn't speak our language. It hadn't left. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry, and asked if she was with it. No, she said. I asked where she was, and she told me she was by a dog, the dark brown one curled up on the couch behind my mom. My mom's hair was blonde back then, so I asked if Lily was near the blonde woman. The planchette jerked to yes. I didn't want to believe it, but the room felt wrong now, like something was pressing against my back. I asked Lily to prove she was there, half hoping she wouldn't. The air shifted, and a chill brushed my neck. Then it happened. Something nudged my mom's shoulder, hard enough to make her flinch, and the jacket draped over a nearby lamp slid to the floor, like an invisible hand had flicked it off. Goosebumps erupted across my arms, and my mom's face went pale, her breath catching. The dogs whined softly, and the cats still hadn't moved, their eyes locked on that empty doorway. We learned Lily just wanted peace, to move on from this house where she'd been left behind. But I couldn't shake the feeling of that other presence, the one by the door, watching us. Even after we closed the board, the kitchen felt too big, too quiet, like it was waiting for us to leave so it could breathe again. I haven't touched a Ouija board since, but sometimes I dream of that night, and I swear I feel Lily's small hand on my shoulder or something else, standing just out of sight. I was 14, back around the 13th or 15th of August. I spent a summer evening at my aunt's house in a quiet coastal town near Brighton, England. My family's always been open to the strange. My grandmother used to tell tales of spirits and signs, calling us a line of seers. I loved that stuff, especially messing with Ouija boards. There was something thrilling about reaching into the unknown, like whispering to the shadows and waiting for an answer. That night, my mom, my two aunts, and I gathered in the dim kitchen. The board spread out on the table, ready to see what might come through. The air felt heavy as we started, the candlelight flickering against the walls. Almost right away, something connected, a presence that moved the planchette fast, but it was confusing, like it was speaking in a language none of us knew, all sharp consonants and strange rhythms. It unnerved me, but we moved on, letting it go. Then another presence came through, quick and clear. It felt different, softer, like a sigh in the room. It was a little girl, and she told us her name was Lily. For nearly an hour, I felt her with us, her energy delicate but steady. The planchette glided under my fingers, spelling out answers about her life, how old she was, why she lingered in this old house by the sea. The kitchen seemed to shrink, the shadows pooling deeper in the corners. My aunt's dogs, usually restless, sat still, their eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. Then things turned strange. The cats, who'd been dozing, bolted from the hallway toward the back door in the kitchen, where my back was turned. They froze there, staring up at the top of the doorframe, their fur bristling. My skin prickled, like the air had grown colder just behind me. I asked Lily if we were alone. The planchette slid to no. My heart thudded, but I kept my hand steady. She spelled out that someone else was by the door. The same presence we brushed off earlier, the one that didn't speak our language. It hadn't left. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry, and asked if she was with it. No, she said. I asked where she was, and she told me she was by a dog, the dark brown one curled up on the couch behind my mom. My mom's hair was blonde back then, so I asked if Lily was near the blonde woman. The planchette jerked to yes. I didn't want to believe it, but the room felt wrong now, like something was pressing against my back. I asked Lily to prove she was there, half hoping she wouldn't. The air shifted, and a chill brushed my neck. Then it happened. Something nudged my mom's shoulder, hard enough to make her flinch, and the jacket draped over a nearby lamp slid to the floor, like an invisible hand had flicked it off. Goosebumps erupted across my arms, and my mom's face went pale, her breath catching. The dogs whined softly, and the cats still hadn't moved, their eyes locked on that empty doorway. We learned Lily just wanted peace, to move on from this house where she'd been left behind. But I couldn't shake the feeling of that other presence, the one by the door, watching us. Even after we closed the board, the kitchen felt too big, too quiet, like it was waiting for us to leave so it could breathe again. I haven't touched a Ouija board since, but sometimes I dream of that night. And I swear I feel Lily's small hand on my shoulder or something else, standing just out of sight. Last autumn, I took a seasonal job at a Halloween attraction called the House of Shadows, set up in an old warehouse just outside Boise, Idaho. I was assigned to the pitch-black maze, a twisting labyrinth of tarp walls and narrow corridors designed to disorient and scare. On opening night, the air was thick with excitement and nervous energy, the kind that makes your skin tingle before something goes wrong. My job was simple: guide groups through the maze, keep things creepy but safe, and make sure no one got lost. But from the moment I stepped inside, I felt something off, like the darkness wasn't just empty space. The maze was a void, no light, no landmarks, just the rustle of plastic walls and the occasional scream from visitors echoing through. Early in the evening, as I moved through the corridors alone, I noticed a faint sound, like fabric dragging against the tarp. At first, I thought it was my long cloak brushing the walls, a heavy thing I wore to blend into the theme. But the sound didn't match my steps. It was slower, deliberate, coming from behind me. I stopped, holding my breath, and the sound stopped too. My pulse quickened, but I told myself it was nothing, just the maze playing tricks on my mind. As the night wore on, the feeling grew heavier. The air seemed to press against me, cold and clingy, like I was wading through something unseen. Then I heard its soft, steady footsteps, not mine, trailing just a few paces back. They were too close, too real, matching my path through the twists and turns. I spun around, my flashlight cutting through the dark, but the beam caught nothing but tarp and shadows. My throat tightened, and I kept moving faster now, the footsteps still dogging me, never rushing, never fading. By 9:30, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands were shaking, my breath shallow, as I radioed the guy at the control booth, asking him to check the cameras. I stood frozen in the maze, the darkness swallowing my flashlight's glow, waiting for his answer. He came back, his voice crackling through the static, saying I was the only one in there, had been all night. No guests, no other workers, just me. But I knew what I'd heard, what I'd felt. The footsteps had stopped when I stopped, like whatever it was didn't want to be seen. The rest of the shift, I stayed near the maze's exit, avoiding the deeper corridors. Even there, I couldn't shake the sense of something watching, its presence lingering just beyond the tarp. When my shift ended, I left without looking back, the warehouse looming behind me like it was holding its breath. I never returned to that job. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I hear that dragging sound again, faint but close, and I wonder if something followed me out of that maze, waiting for me to step back into its shadows. My family's always had a knack for the strange, like we're tuned to a frequency most people can't hear. Growing up in a small town near Springfield, Illinois, I learned early that our stories weren't just tales. They were warnings. My dad's experiences set the tone. When he was 7, camping with his parents and sister in a dense forest outside St. Louis, Missouri, a stranger wandered into their campsite one evening around 1965. He looked like he'd stepped out of an old western, all-weather boots and a wide hat with a pale hound trailing him. They let him warm by the fire, and he stayed for hours, swapping stories under the stars. But when Dad offered him a spot for the night, the man just stood, tipped his hat, and walked into the trees with his dog. They vanished into the dark, no trace of footsteps. Later, at a nearby ranger station, Dad learned a man and his hound had drowned in a river flood there decades before. The air in our house always felt heavier after he told that story, like the stranger might still be out there, looking for a fire to join. Years later, in the early 1990s, Dad had another brush with something unnatural. He was skateboarding with 2 friends in a quiet Iowa suburb when they saw a cloud that stopped them cold. It wasn't just a cloud. It stretched across the sky like a serpent, its edges sharp and coiling, with a head that looked alive. 2 glowing patches burned where eyes should have been, reflecting the 3 of them staring up, their faces mirrored in that impossible light. It had horns curling back, scales glinting faintly, and a jaw lined with jagged shapes that weren't quite teeth. It hung there, silent, then dissolved into the dusk. Dad said it felt like it saw him, really saw him, and I could tell it still shook him when he spoke of it. Then there was his childhood bedroom, tucked in the attic of their old house. Most nights, as he drifted off, he'd feel the blanket shift, pulled gently over his shoulders, his pillow adjusted under his head. He never saw anyone, but it wasn't his parents. They were downstairs, fast asleep. Whatever it was felt kind, like a lost relative watching over him, but it still made my skin crawl to think of something moving so close in the dark. My own encounters started young. When I was 11, we had a dog named Shadow, a gentle black mutt who never hurt a soul. One afternoon in 1999, I was in the living room when a heavy wooden table, the kind you'd need 2 people to lift, jerked off the floor and flew across the room. It hit Shadow hard, knocking her against the wall. She yelped and scrambled away, unharmed but shaken. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding as the table settled like nothing had happened. Nothing else moved, no quake, no wind, just that table, angry at her for no reason. I knew then that something in our house didn't like her. In 2011, I went hiking with my dad and sister in a wooded park near Peoria. While they talked by a stream, I wandered a bit, drawn to a cluster of bushes. Something caught my eye, a shape, tall and dark, peering out. It wasn't human, not quite. Its face was long, like it was stretched, with black eyes that didn't blink and a mane that looked wrong, too thick. Its legs ended in hooves, but it stood upright, leaning toward me. I blinked, and it was gone. A year later, in that same forest, I found tracks, hoofprints pressed deep in the dirt, spaced like something walking on two legs. I didn't go back. The worst came in 2013. Dad was having a rough year, money was tight, and the bank was circling. One night, he lost it, punching a hole in the living room wall. His hand bled, and he smeared it across the plaster, too angry to care. That night, something answered. I wasn't there, but he told me later how he woke up choking, pinned to his bed. A shape loomed over him, a wolfish thing with coal-black fur and eyes like burning coals. Its hands weren't paws. They were human, pale and wrong, gripping his throat. It spoke, its voice low and ancient, saying it was older than time itself. When Dad woke, gasping, he found bruises circling his neck, shaped like those unnatural hands. The blood on the wall was gone, like it had been licked clean. Our family carries these moments like scars. Every creak in the house, every shadow that lingers too long, feels like it's waiting for us to notice it. I don't talk about it much, but sometimes I feel that Wolf's eyes on me, or hear a hound's soft steps in the dark, and I know we're never really alone. A few nights ago, in October of 2015, I was walking with 5 friends through the empty streets of a small town near Durango, Colorado. We'd just come from a midnight showing of a cult horror film at the local theater, our laughter echoing in the crisp autumn air. My friends Jake, his partner Tom, Riley, Sage, and Big, Steady Marcus were all in high spirits, trading grim jokes and spooky tailies that fit our edgy vibe. I've always been sensitive to things others miss, like a shadow that lingers too long or a chill that doesn't belong. I call it my guide, a quiet presence I've felt since I was a kid, trailing me like a guardian. That night, it was close, rushing my senses as we wandered past shuttered shops on Main Street. Around 2:30 in the morning, our path took us near the town's old cemetery, a sprawl of crooked stones and gnarled trees tucked behind a low iron fence. I'd avoided it since a bad night 2 years earlier, when I'd gotten trapped in a crypt during a dare gone wrong, surrounded by whispers that weren't human. My friends knew the story, but they were curious, drawn to the graveyard's eerie pull. My guide felt calm, so I went along, sticking close to the group, the moonlight barely cutting through the heavy dark. The air grew colder as we crossed the gate, the ground soft under my boots. My skin prickled, that familiar tug of something nearby. Marcus, who's got a knack for sensing things too, slowed down, his eyes scanning the shadows. He pointed toward a cluster of headstones, and I saw it, a figure standing maybe 30 feet away. It wasn't right. The moonlight caught a tattered suit, rotted through, hanging off a frame that was too thin, too broken. Its face was worse, half bone, half sagging flesh, with empty sockets where eyes should have been. My breath caught, and I grabbed Marcus's arm, his solidness the only thing keeping me grounded. The figure turned its head, locking onto me. It vanished, then reappeared closer, much closer, its bony fingers twitching like they wanted to reach out. My chest tightened and a scream tore from my throat, raw and unstoppable. My legs buckled, fear flooding me so fast I couldn't think. I sank to the ground, shaking, tears burning my eyes. I'm not easy to scare, but this was different, pure, gut-deep terror, like it was pulling something out of me. My friends froze, their faces pale in the dim light, and then a voice cut through the silence, hollow and wrong, asking for someone named Ellie. It came from nowhere, everywhere, curling around us like smoke. Marcus didn't hesitate. He scooped me up, my body too weak to stand, and carried me toward the gate, the others hurrying behind. The figure didn't follow, but I felt its gaze boring into my back, heavy and hungry. We didn't stop until we were back on Main Street, the cemetery swallowed by the night. I knew that thing. It was the same presence from the crypt 2 years ago, the one that had trapped me in the dark with its whispers. It wasn't done with me. Even now, I can't walk past that graveyard without my heart racing, my guide warning me to keep moving. Sometimes, in the quiet of my room, I feel that hollow voice again, asking for Ellie, and I wonder if it's still out there, waiting for me to answer.